Welcome back to Gather Around the Table. Today we have a special guest on the podcast, Bradley Banning. Bradley's available for booking through CatholicSpeakers.com. They're great. That's how we got connected to him. Bradley, can you give us a general introduction? Where are you from? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm from North Texas. My name's Bradley Banning. I'm a country music artist, a Catholic country music artist, as some people have told me. And I make country music that doesn't conflict with my faith.
I love that. And I think you posted
Yeah.
on Instagram, like you can listen to it with your kids, you can listen to it in front of your grandma,
Yeah.
you get the aux cord back and everything. That's so funny.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I've always wanted to go to Texas too. I got the cowboy boots. I've been line dancing
Oh,
before. I
yeah.
love like I feel like it's just cliche Texas stuff, right?
Yeah. Where are you from?
Chicago.
Okay.
So, but
Yeah.
I have
Oh,
family
hey.
in Texas too, but I haven't been.
Oh, do you?
So,
Awesome.
yeah.
What part of Texas do you know?
Austin.
Oh, okay. My brother's in
Yeah.
Austin.
Oh,
So we're
nice.
about a 3.5 hour drive from there.
Cool, cool.
Yeah.
We're talking about two of my favorite things today, country music and conversion stories. Did you always have a relationship with God growing up? What was that like?
Yeah, someone asked me this question before, and the best way I can describe it is I always felt like God had a hand on me. Somehow it's like, I was always kind of been cautious and cognizant of my faith and of God. I feel like this is true for everybody, but I feel like he's never left me. But I grew up in the Methodist church. I didn't go to church I got baptized early as a baby, early in the Methodist church. And then my brother got really sick when we were kids, and we didn't go to church for a while because we couldn't be around a lot of people because he had an autoimmune disease. And then so we started going back to church around the time I was in second grade. And so I went to church on Sundays, and but I never really and never got into like Sunday school, or what was it called? We would have basically like youth group on Sundays. And my best friend Daniel would always have to drag me to go. I never wanted to have anything to do with it, but I guess I always had a good sense of like right and wrong, and I should do this, and I wanted to be good. But God used that to really shape me and mold me and bring me to the Catholic faith over the years. And so I've always had a relationship with God, but as for most people, the relationship has grown over the years, but it is night and day from where it was growing up. I didn't have really a sense. I mean, I wasn't Catholic growing up, so I didn't have a sense of the sacraments or really who God was. And I would say the thing that has grown the most is how loved I am by God, how loved we are all by God. That's something I've really struggled with, but have really grown with since growing up. Because for me, I guess growing up, it was, well, you do this because it's right, and this is wrong, so you don't do this. And God is there, and He's more kind of like a judge. Are you good or are you bad? And so coming into the Catholic Church and realizing, oh no, there is a relationship with Christ in that we are loved by the Father, and that the Holy Spirit is alive and can speak to us and through us. I describe it as things that have become three-dimensional in my faith since my conversion. But so yeah, sorry, that was a
No,
a longer
a long story.
explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then
Well,
what led you
yeah.
to the Catholic Church? When did that happen?
That happened around 2012, somewhere 2012, 11, 13, somewhere in there. It's hard to place it because I went to mass, evening mass, for a few years before I became Catholic. I realized when I was living in Nashville, I grew up in Texas, moved to Nashville, and lived there for a decade, and realized that, oh, hey, when I go to church on Sundays, my week runs a little bit smoother. So I started to realize that, and I had gone to a Bible study that was kind of very Southern Baptist, and it kind of scared me. And I was like, God, I want to know you. Like, please show me. And so started going to church again regularly, and realized my weeks were a little bit smoother. And so my goal was get to church on Sunday. And this one particular Sunday, I had found a Methodist church that I liked, that I was going to with my girlfriend. And we were driving, and we got in an argument that day, and we were just like, we're not going to church together. I went back, we went our separate ways, and went home, and I was disappointed that I didn't get to church. And so my roommate, who was having a reversion at the time, uh, call him Kerwin, he was my roommate from Northern Ireland, grew up Catholic, and he's like, "Well, man, you can go to mass with me if you want to tonight." And I was like, "Okay, it's Jesus, sure, I'll go." And so that was my first time in mass, and I just knelt down on the kneeler, and for whatever reason, tears started coming down my eyes And it wasn't like crying, sad crying. I'm not a big crier, but it's just like, okay, I'm home. That was the sense. I'm home. Everybody's describes the Catholic Church as home. Everybody welcomed me back home when I came into the church. And I didn't know that was a thing, but that was the sense inside me. It was just welcome home. And I had been looking for a church that was home, and I just knew that it was home, and found out so much more about the church in the coming years um, that really just made me realize, oh, this is home. So yeah, I started going to church for a couple of years before I actually became Catholic. So my first time was in an evening mass, and it took me a while to let go of a lot of things before I actually took the step to become Catholic.
What was like one of your biggest things that you struggled with about, like I know people say like, oh, Mary, oh, that priest can't get married. What was there something that you struggled with a lot when you became Catholic?
Gosh, it's a good question. I think it was I don't know. I don't know. I
Yes.
can't really tell you. I don't think it was actually a specific issue with the church. I've said before that, there are certain things that were hard. The Pope's kind of a difficult thing, but that didn't hold me back. Mary was very easy for me to understand. I had an experience with Mary where she appeared in a vision to me. And so that is what actually started to bring me even closer to Christ and closer to the church. And the Eucharist just I accepted. But I think, okay, this is what it really was. It wasn't anything in the church. It was what I saw in other churches. And there was a lot of pride in me that was just keeping me from coming into the church because I had to let go of a bunch of things. I knew I would have to change the way I lived, the way I made music, because I was actively writing songs in Nashville and working in the music business. And I knew it was going to change a lot of my life. I was going out to bars, networking and drinking every evening. I was dating a girl too who wasn't Catholic, and there was a lot of me letting go of my ideas of what my life was going to look like. And I think that was the bigger holdback to answer the question that you asked. I think also I was going to a bunch of churches. I went to the Methodist church, ended up going to a non-denom church, ended up trying a bunch of churches to make sure, am I right about this? Is this actually true? Is the Catholic Church does it have the fullness of the Christian faith? And so I tried a bunch of churches, and I ended up in a non-denom church that invited me to be part of their like Wednesday evening men's study that kind of decided what was going to be preached on the next Sunday. And I was getting to have a say without a theology degree, without any prior like preaching, or I just didn't have any of the necessary requirements to be deciding any of these things for a church. And I was really coming back into my faith. I was like, well, why are they allowing me to have a say in this? And also, well, hold on a second. Why are y'all taking bottles of baptismal water that someone's been baptized in, bottling it up and giving it to them, and then putting another bottle up on this kind of like altar thing that they had? And I just realized, I was like, man, they're making up their own rules. They're making up their own tradition. If if they're so against tradition and religion, why are they making up their own traditions? This doesn't make any sense. Why would I abandon the Catholic traditions that have been going on for centuries and come over here and start new ones? And why is this okay when that's not okay? And I was just like, oh man, there's this hunger in these Protestant churches that is looking for what already exists in the Catholic Church. And I think that's what really got me to the church. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no,
But
you're
I
good. It's
realized
so
as I was
interesting.
explaining that, I was like, that's not what held me back, but
Yeah,
that's what brought me to the church. And
right.
it was just internal struggle in myself that really held me back from it. But there was no real Catholic teaching, I think, that kept me, that was difficult. Everything was difficult to accept because it was different than I was living. It was easier to accept than the fact that what I had known wasn't entirely true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so interesting. But you mentioned that you were already doing music at this point. What was your
hmm
relationship with music like growing up?
Oh, I mean, great. I love music. I love country music. My dad is a songwriter, and he had success in Nashville and in Texas and with songs growing up. And so I had guys coming to my house to write songs that, that now have names and, you know, gold records and a lot of kind of hit songs. And so I saw these guys coming into my house and writing with my dad, and that's all I wanted to do. But I mean, at the time they weren't famous and they didn't have any hits. And I was like, and then people started to have success. My dad had some hits, and he never actually moved to Nashville because he wanted to keep us close to our family and our grandparents. But I saw all these people around me, specifically my dad and his friends, writing songs, and I was like, oh, this is actually a career. You can go do this. And so I that's all I wanted to do after seeing that. And I just love telling stories. I love writing songs. Later on, I realized I loved producing and recording. And so I've just always had a great relationship with music and songwriting. And my dad, and I would sit up in his office on the weekends sometimes and listen through songs that he had written, songs that he thought were great that other artists, other songwriters had written. And so music was all we talked about, especially songwriting. And so I've always had a great relationship with it. And that's just what I always wanted to do. So when I was 18, I moved to Nashville and started writing songs, and went to college at Belmont University, got a degree in the music business, and then worked in the music business, and then eventually ended up having a little bit of success on my own with some music that I had written.
You started out, you were making music, and then that's when you became Catholic. Tell us about how you went from secular, if I understand correctly, secular country to Catholic country.
Yeah, and you know, this is kind of weird for me because I don't feel like I'm doing anything completely different. I mean, I obviously am, but my goal really is to write country music that leads people to Christ and leads people to the Catholic faith and to truth. Because, for example, there are a bunch of two-stepping groups around the U.S. and there's quite a few here in DFW as well that are Catholic two-step dance groups. And so a lot of young singles go out and they go two-stepping, line dancing, and they that's something that they do, and it's good, it's healthy, and they need good music to dance to. And unfortunately, a lot of what's popular in the more secular in the secular genre. I'm trying to, it's weird because people have started telling me, I have a friend that actually this last year told me that, hey, well, you got to accept it. You're a Catholic country artist. I was like, I don't know what that means. But so I'm trying to get used to the idea and really figure out like, you know, how do I describe this? But the idea is basically those groups need music to listen to. People love country music. It's relatable. It talks about life. It tells stories sometimes, and that's good. Jesus uses parables in the Bible, and so my goal is to write parables, to write songs about real life, music that people can listen to, that they can dance to, that they can enjoy. I've played a bunch of church barbecues over the last year. People love country music, and so I want to make country music that is country, but it has Catholic themes tied into it, and it's not music that's gonna, you know, celebrate drinking. Well, I mean, not that drinking's bad either,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I've got songs about beer, but
right.
not abusing alcohol, not, you know, that's not littered with profanity, that's not, you know, preaching hookup culture, anything that's gonna lead us further away from Christ. And so I guess you could say it's clean country music, but it's just country music that promotes faith, family, and Christian values, Catholic values. And so yeah, sorry,
But you
another
wrote a song
long-winded
about Saint
answer.
Therese, right? How much more Catholic could you get than Saint
So
Therese?
well, and so here's some of the confusion with that is it's not necessarily about Saint Therese, but it's dedicated to Saint Therese. So Saint Therese is one of my patron saints. She was one of my two confirmation saints, and her her dream was to be a saint in heaven, and on earth she wanted to be a Carmelite nun, right? Like her sisters. And so that's a big dream. Like that's the big dream we all should have, is to be saints. And so I wrote the song called Be a Kid. It's dream big, be a kid. And it is about my own internal struggle with like just being a child of God, just being who God made me to be. And that is a country songwriter, a country artist. He's given me the gift of music, and where it goes in the future, I have no idea. But I want to be a saint. This is a gift that he's given me that he's called me to use. And so I want to dream big and be a kid, be a child of God, and just approach life with that childlike mentality and trust in Christ. And that's what Saint Therese had. And so be a Kid is a song dedicated to Saint Therese, about basically her little way and how it's applied to my life. And so those are the kinds of things that I'm trying to do with country music. It's not, I'm not saying I won't write a country song about going to mass because I mean, I've been asked to and I probably will, but I want to I'm trying to figure out a way to build a bridge with country music and the Catholic faith is what I'm trying to do. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like you make a lot of Catholic references too on your Instagram posts, like, oh, if she sent you this, she wants to take you out to go to
Yeah.
mass and dancing. You're like, you gotta ask the girl up that you met at adoration. So I feel like you do
Yeah.
that too, even if it's not super Catholic, like you were saying, you're making Catholic references about adoration and the Eucharist and stuff on your Instagram page too.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've
Exactly.
been blind dancing into mass before, and that is a really fun date. So I highly
Who
recommend
have
that.
you? Okay,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
And then I got asked out, too, after mass, and adoration's always a part of our dates. So I approve all of that stuff that you're writing
That's
about
awesome.
too.
I love
And
it.
then with the country music too. So I love it. I love it.
That's amazing.
You also said on your Instagram page about horror movies changing the way that you make country music.
Oh,
What was your experience about that? Like, why should you be intentional about the media that you consume?
yeah. So well, I won't even mention them, but there's a specific movie, not a trilogy, but basically just there were some movies that came out like every Halloween that I used to go see growing up. And then there was one particular that was an exorcism movie that I went to see in high school, and I just had nightmares. And I was terrified. And I always thought it was like, oh man, I need to get over this, I got I gotta be more of a man. I gotta not be scared when I go to these haunted houses or go see these movies. So it was like kind of like this test, like putting yourself through this like challenge. And I would watch these movies, and every year I'd go with friends, and I realized one day it just kind of like clicked that I was like, I'm watching these movies about, whatever the horror movies were and crime movies and certain genres that were either gory or just thoughts that you don't even want in your head or scene sequences that are just disturbing. And it's like, why am I allowing this in my head? I'm dreaming about this stuff. And I don't know, I can't remember if someone proposed that I stop or that it clicked for me and I just stopped. But before I knew it, I wasn't watching these films anymore. And then I started making a conscious decision that like, hey, I'm just not going to watch that anymore. Because I don't want those thoughts in my head. I don't want nightmares. And so when I cut all that out of my life, I started realizing, I don't struggle with these types of nightmares anymore. I mean, not to say I don't have nightmares ever. We
Yeah.
all do.
Okay.
It's about different things now though. And so it just kind of clicked. And then as I got further into my faith, I realized, well, how does this pertain to what I'm doing? Just like our bodies, if we're over consuming anything, it tends to wreak havoc on our body, especially, alcohol and, you know, certain unhealthy things. I'm not a doctor, so I won't go into it. But if when we overconsume things, it tends to not be good for us. And I was like, well, shoot, I need to think about the music that I'm consuming and I'm listening to. How's that shaping my mind? Because, you'd hear something on the radio that's catchy, and most people don't really pay attention to the lyrics. And, you're humming this melody that's saying something vulgar, and it's like, oh man, that's just caught in my head.
Mhm.
And it's been, over time, over the last decade since I've become Catholic, I feel like God's either given me the grace or it's just this growing sense that I'm conscious of now that like I don't really want to listen to this. I don't want to listen to that. I don't want to watch that. And it's just like you kind of get this icky feeling when you see these movies or listen to these songs. It's just like I don't really want that. And sometimes it's hard because like catchy pop song comes on.
Yeah.
It's like, man, this is a catchy melody. And then you realize, oh man, it's not talking about something that I should really be feeding my mind or the people around me. And I've got a little boy now, and like I don't want to listen to it in the car and him hear it. And it's just I don't want it in my marriage. I don't want, I'm not going to control what my wife listens to, but I don't want to be playing this junk around my wife for her to hear, even if I enjoy it. Maybe she doesn't, but it's just I don't want that. And it just we become what we consume. And so, yeah, that's kind of what that post was about. Was specifically that post was about horror movies, and it was around Halloween. But yeah, it just really applies to all media, I think.
Hey, I'm not stalking you, but I think you said you're your wife's top, one of her top artists on Spotify Wrapped,
Yeah.
right? You gotta be listening to something good.
And that's because mainly because my son I have a song called Don't Mess with Texas. That's what really got me kind of started. It was an answered prayer. I wrote the song with my dad and a buddy of ours, Kyle Level, and it got me some success down in Texas. Got played on like 60 radio stations and started my career. But when my wife was still pregnant with our son, she asked me to play him music, and that was just the song that I played. And so I would sing it, and she asked me to sing it. And so when he was born, I would put him to sleep with that. And I mean, anytime we're in the car, if it's me playing it on my guitar or he hears it on the radio, he just stops. He can be crying, screaming, crying, and we play that song and he stops. I mean, I sing it almost every night now, putting him to bed because he it just puts him to sleep and it calms him or whatever. So mainly that was because she has to play that song when he's crying in the car. I'm sure is why I was one of her top.
That's
But
so funny. Do
yeah.
you have any other Catholic artists or Christian artists that you'd recommend? We were just talking about media and what you consume. I don't know if you have anything you recommend.
I do. I do. So I posted a post a few weeks ago. I need to do another one sometime soon, maybe in the new year about Catholic artists that I've found. But I'll give you some that were on that post and one other that I'm
Mm.
working with right now that I didn't mention on that post. But Colleen McKenna is a country artist. I think she's in Nashville, but she's Catholic and wonderful voice, great songwriter that I've listened to recently and followed on social media. My friends Colin and Katrina Kerwin. Colin was my roommate that we talked about earlier. They've got a band called Kerwin the Band. There's this guy, Nathaniel E. Young. I found him on the FIO app, which is
Oh
a
yeah.
Catholic streaming app.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to him to do something with him later this next year, which would be fun. And then Elizabeth Christie, who I found online and we connected. She's a country artist, songwriter as well. And then I had another one somewhere. Oh, I have to. I was making notes earlier. My buddy Abraham Sauls, he's a praise and worship minister out of Houston, and love him. So check him out. And then Basanova, he is out of Europe, and we're working on something together right now. And so yeah, those are six to start with, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I'll make another post here in the new year.
Yeah, I love that. Do you have any projects you can leak to us? Are you working on any new music or any fun projects?
Working working on a lot of new music and figuring out more and more kind of what I want Catholic country to look like. And so I've got some Catholic country songs coming out in the new year that I'm excited about. A lot of stuff.
Yay, I'm so excited. What's the
Me too.
hardest, best part about your like the industry? Like I feel like you're just kind of creating, like again, we said Catholic or Christian country artist. What's the hardest, best part about that?
Yeah, articulating what it is,
Mm.
I think, because there are a lot of Catholic artists out there, and there are a lot of country artists who are Catholic, but no one's really kind of there are people, I'm sure, but there's no one that I can go say, hey, this is how you did it. This is how I should be doing it, right? And the hardest part is articulating what it is, because for me, it's very specifically, it's not like I want to write all my songs are, in honor God. And but I want to make music for the people who are dancing in dance halls. It's a huge thing down here in Texas, two-stepping. All the Catholic singles that are going out two-stepping. I want to make music that they can dance to that is good and wholesome, because going out and dancing with your friends and with your wife or your boyfriend, girlfriend, or husband is good. And as long as you keep it good and healthy. But I want to make music that builds that bridge, and figuring that out, articulating that, figuring out how to do it right. I struggle with scrupulosity, so I don't want to ever be making money off of God, but figuring out how you talk about God and make music, and it's also your business, is it's kind of a hard line to straddle. I'm figuring it out. That's why I've got to pray, discern, and just be prudent. But figuring that out is, I think, the most difficult thing about it. And because uh you know I've struggled to figure out, like, is there a blueprint that I can follow to do this right so I don't go outside the lines. And that's and that's where I think it gets really difficult. Yeah.
We mentioned earlier that you're available for booking through CatholicSpeakers.com, but do you want to talk
Yeah.
about like your Instagram or where people can find you on Spotify? You're on the VO
Yeah.
app too, right? We were talking about that earlier as well.
Yeah. Go there as well. You can find me on Theo app, find me on Spotify. It's just Bradley Banning everywhere. It's just my name, Bradley Banning. And then, if you go to bradleybanning.com, you can find everything you want to there. And then Instagram, like you said, Instagram, TikTok, I'm at Bradley Banning. So actually on TikTok, I'm at Bradley Banning Music. But yeah, go find me there.
You do backyard shows or something too, right? Can we book your backyard show on your website as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I do a lot of backyard shows, house parties, and church events. So you can find me on my website, and you can always go to catholicspeakers.com and book anything through there as well.
And you
Yeah.
travel too, right? If I
Oh
wanted to
yeah.
have you all the way up in Chicago or the Midwest, you'll come up here.
Oh yeah. I'm going coast to coast this next year. I've got gigs on the West Coast, on the East Coast, so a lot of traveling in this new
In the
year.
Midwest too? And
Yeah,
me?
I will be. I will be. Are you in Chicago, or are you outside the city?
South side of Chicago.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, I
Very cool.
appreciate this. This was so much fun to get to connect with
Absolutely.
you
Thanks for
and
having
talk
me.
about you.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you later. Thank you so much.
All right. God bless.